We talk about legacies a lot here on the channel as it pertains to legendary professional athletes. Legacy is important. Legacy is what you leave behind once your playing career is over. Legacy is what everyone is going to remember you for. Throughout their career, legendary players are constantly adding to their legacy, whether it be positive or negative. There are so many positives throughout the career of LeBron James, but what we will also remember is the spectacle known as the decision, and also leading the NBA down the path of woke politics last summer. So even though LeBron has a lot of positives to his legacy, he also has a couple of negatives. The legacy of Michael Jordan, 6 championships, 2 three-peats, 3 in a row. An NBA career that was unprecedented. He took the NBA to levels of popularity that the league had never seen before, and they've never seen since. What do we also remember, though, about Michael Jordan? His abrupt retirement in the mid-90s to go play baseball, all the rumors that surrounded that about the gambling and his gambling habits. Now, I don't look at either one of those things as negative, but there are some that perceive those to be stains on Michael Jordan's legacy. My point is, when we look back at the legacies of legendary players in the NFL or the NBA, we usually find a lot of positives and 1 or 2 negatives. That's natural. I mean, these guys are human. I mean, we all make mistakes, so it's natural for that to be the case. I have followed the career of Drew Brees for 20 years and followed it really closely the last 15 or so years that he's been in New Orleans. Looking back at the legacy of Drew Brees, I can't think of one negative incident or one stain on his legacy. There's been no scandal, no controversy. I guess the only incident that could be perceived as a negative, possibly maybe even a stain on his legacy, was his comments from last summer about NFL players kneeling for the national anthem. Now, that's not the fault of Drew Brees, at least in my opinion. The Wokers blew that way out of proportion. Drew Brees had been saying that he was against players kneeling for the national anthem for years, but somehow last summer, his opinion was suddenly controversial. I don't understand it. You would be hard-pressed to find anyone in the NFL community that has a bad word to say about Drew Brees. You damn sure aren't going to find anybody in New Orleans who's going to say something negative about him. The city of New Orleans will forever be indebted to Drew Brees. The Saints saved his career, took a chance on him when no other team in the NFL would even give him a look. But Drew Brees saved the city of New Orleans. The city was a third world country after Hurricane Katrina. Many residents left, evacuated, never came back. Drew Brees and the Saints, they played a huge part in the revitalization of New Orleans. I will never forget that Monday Night Football game against Atlanta, Week 3, 2006 season. The Saints' first home game in the Superdome in almost 2 years. Steve Gleason blocked the punt in the first quarter. Drew Brees and the Saints dominated that game, made the NFC Championship game that year. It was the first time that you knew that New Orleans was going to be okay, that they were going to make it through everything or the aftermath of Katrina, that it was going to survive. Drew Brees changed the city of New Orleans for the better. All the charity work that he's given to the city, the money that he's given, the parks that he's created, the football leagues for the kids. His contributions to the city of New Orleans are unmatched. But Drew Brees also changed the NFL. There used to be a kind of an unwritten rule in the NFL when it came to quarterbacks. Teams wanted their quarterbacks to be a certain height. Troy Aikman, 6'4". Same with Dan Marino, John Elway, Peyton Manning, 6'5", Tom Brady, 6'4". Drew Brees is listed at 6 feet tall, but that's a stretch. I mean, that's with him standing on his tiptoes. He's really around 5'11". Coming into the league, one of the major drawbacks against him was his height. There had never been a quarterback that short that had made a long career in the NFL. Drew Brees paved the way for guys like Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Baker Mayfield. He showed the NFL that you didn't need to have the height of an NBA point guard to be a successful quarterback in the NFL. Where does Drew Brees rank on the list of all-time great quarterbacks in the history of the league? Is he on the Mount Rushmore of the NFL? Obviously, Tom Brady's number one. There's no denying that. In my opinion, Tom Brady's the greatest professional athlete of all time across all major sports, not just the NFL. But I've got Drew Brees as number two on my list of all-time great NFL quarterbacks. Now, I could be being a Saints homer here, and I'm not sure everyone's going to agree with me. But when you think about everything that he had to overcome, the height issue, the shoulder injury that damn near ended his career, going to New Orleans, a city, like I said earlier, that was a third world country when he got there. He took a franchise in the Saints that was an eyesore for 3 decades in the NFL. The Saints commanded no respect. Fans used to wear bags over their heads in the Superdome because the Saints were so dreadful to watch. Drew Brees took this franchise and made them one of the most respected teams in the NFL. The Saints had won one playoff game in the 39 years before Drew Brees and Sean Payton arrived. One playoff win in 39 years. Drew Brees doubled the number of playoff wins for the Saints his first season in New Orleans. If you went off of statistics alone, Drew Brees would be the best quarterback in the history of the NFL. But like I say on here all the time, stats can be misleading. The one knock on Drew Brees' legacy is that he only made it to and won one Super Bowl. Now, he came close several times, 3 appearances in NFC Championship games, one in which he was screwed over by NFL officials, but I digress. We won't go down that road again. But Drew Brees only has one Super Bowl win on his resume. Now, in his defense, he had to go through 3 all-time great quarterbacks to win that Super Bowl. Kurt Warner, Brett Favre, and then Peyton Manning. So the road to that championship was far from easy, but it never is in the NFL for anybody who wins a Super Bowl. Now, besides Dan Marino, your other all-time great quarterbacks have multiple championships. That's really the only negative on Drew Brees' legacy, besides the fact that he never won the NFL MVP award, which is really astonishing when you think about it. Part of the reason, though, that Drew Brees only has one Super Bowl appearance and one championship is kind of his fault. For about 8 years, he commanded max money from the Saints, which is hard on NFL teams under normal circumstances, but it was even more difficult for New Orleans because they had the punishment for the Bountygate scandal. That ridiculous punishment handed out by Roger Goodell, where he took multiple draft picks from the Saints. So their quarterback was eating up a decent percentage of their salary cap, and they couldn't get cheap, talented players in the draft because they didn't have any picks. Now, of course, later in his career, after going 7-9 3 straight years and realizing that he was on the back 9 of his career, Drew Brees realized that he needed help, especially on the defensive end. I mean, the Saints were historically bad defensively. So Drew Brees took less money so the Saints could load up on defense. And it worked. The Saints have been one of the most dominant teams in the league the last 4 years, especially defensively. Overall, Drew Brees had one of the best careers in the history of the NFL. His number is going to be retired by the Saints one day. They'll have a statue of him in Champion Square outside of the Superdome. But now as Saints fans, we are faced with a question that we haven't had to ask since 2006. Where do we go from here? Who is going to be our quarterback next season? I was hoping Sean Payton was going to go after Russell Wilson, and maybe he is, and we don't know it, but Sean Payton can't wait on Seattle to figure out what the hell they're going to do with Russell Wilson. If it's not going to be Russell Wilson in New Orleans, I would be good with Jameis Winston. Unfortunately, it appears that Taysom Hill is going to be the starter for the Saints in 2021. Taysom Hill. I was hoping Sean Payton was convinced last season that Taysom Hill was not ready to be a franchise quarterback, especially on a playoff caliber team like the Saints have. Much less Taysom Hill being the successor to Drew Brees. I mean, those are big shoes to fill. But apparently, Sean Payton isn't convinced yet that Taysom Hill's not ready. They gave him a 4-year extension over the weekend worth $140 million. Now, on paper anyway, it's worth $140 million. He'll never see close to that amount of money. The contract's voidable after 2021, and the Saints only did this to clear up cap space for this season. However, this signals to me that Sean Payton is going with Taysom Hill as the starter. For one, even with the extension, Taysom Hill still counts a lot of money against the Saints cap for 2021 and 2022. And two, since he counts against the 2022 salary cap, if he's playing well, the Saints can work out another extension during the upcoming season to keep him in New Orleans. Now, I hope they bring Jameis Winston back as a backup. Sean Payton's a great coach and a great scout for offensive players, especially quarterbacks, but I don't see what he sees in Taysom Hill as a franchise quarterback. They're going to need Jameis Winston in New Orleans for Taysom Hill insurance. Now, what do you guys think of Drew Brees' legacy? Where do you rank him all-time on the list of all-time great quarterbacks? Now, who's going to be the starter in New Orleans next season? Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, maybe Russell Wilson, hopefully? Who do you think? Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com. KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.